Good morning, guys, and welcome into your English 2 classroom. Today is September 24th. If you look at your agenda, you are to do the check your understanding and analyze the text from Total Eclipse. You have a test tomorrow over Total Eclipse, and then you'll do the respond vocabulary and your response log entry number 1 for the second 6 weeks. So make sure you have that response log opened and saved into your Google Drive. The previous video, I think it was from Tuesday, will show you how to do that if you have not already done so. Okay, so let's get started. The check your understanding questions, I'm not going to go over those. You have 3 multiple choice. Take your time and answer them carefully, but you do know that you have a checkbox down here. On the Analyze the Text page, the only thing you're going to do are the 5 questions at the top, okay? So we're going to scroll through here, and I'm going to give you some tips and some help and maybe some explanation on how to answer these 5 questions. These need to be answered in at least 3 complete, correctly punctuated and capitalized sentences. You should not start these or include any lowercase i's or any just starting with because something something, okay? So if you remember, we turn the question into a statement. Make sure we answer the question that was asked, and sometimes there's 2 questions. Use text evidence if they ask for it. So what historical allusions does the author make, and how do these allusions contribute to the tone of the essay? Well, an allusion, we talked about it in the video yesterday, is an expression designed to call something to mind without mentioning it explicitly. So an allusion to Shakespeare, an allusion to the Bible. The other form of the word is allude. So he alluded to something in the conversation. So you make mention of it. You might make mention of a piece of artwork or another historical time period. This author uses an allusion by mentioning another historical time period. So I'm just going to go back to the text and show you where that is. And I think you had a question about it yesterday as well. So I'm just going to try to find Euphrates. Here it is. So it's in paragraph 14. The grass at our feet was wild barley. It was the wild einkorn wheat, which grew on the hilly flanks of the Zagros Mountains above the Euphrates Valley. Now, she is in Washington State. Is the Euphrates Valley in Washington State? So I think you should know the author is assuming, and that was one of your questions yesterday, that you would already know that. It is the longest and one of the most historically important rivers in Western Asia. So it's within Turkey, Iraq, and Syria, and that's mainly thought of as, you know, the origin of humanity, okay, along that, or the ancient cultures. So when she's referring to that, she's not there. She's not at the Euphrates Valley, but she is alluding to that. She's making an allusion, and this question from yesterday asked you about that as well. So what she does in this paragraph is makes it seem, she says she feels like she has gone back to prehistoric times, to when people would have been, she felt like she was looking at this lunar eclipse in the same way an ancient person would have viewed it, in complete awe. I've often thought about, and there's actually been some movies that have addressed that, what might an ancient person, a prehistoric society, have thought when suddenly in the middle of the day the sun went dark? I'm sure that was quite an experience. All right, let's get back to our questions. So that's the allusion there, the historical allusion to ancient times near the Euphrates River. And how do these allusions contribute to the tone of the essay? So the tone is the author's attitude towards what she's writing about. She is completely awestruck by the sight that she sees, okay? How does comparing what she's seeing to seeing it as an ancient person in prehistoric times. How does that contribute to the tone? Okay, let's move on to number 2. To what other things does the author compare what she sees during the eclipse? Now, we had a little bit of trouble in my first period class because they were trying to say, well, she didn't compare the eclipse to anything. It's not the eclipse itself, it's just anything in the text that she compares to something else. So I remember in the text, she says, and I addressed this in the video yesterday, so I'm not going to go back to it. She says the hillside was like an old photograph, a tin photograph that had started to fade. That is a comparison that she is using. Okay, that's her comparing what she sees. The hillside suddenly went this silvery metallic color. And so what message or main idea do these images reflect? And support your response with evidence from the text. And you can find another comparison. I would find at least 2. And what message, what is she trying to convey in this entire essay, really? What is she trying to convey by all of these wondrous, elaborate descriptions that she gives of what she's seeing? Oh, just one more thing. So I would start this out with the author compares something and something in paragraph 13. This contributes to the message by showing us something, okay? And then I would give one more, and that would be your text evidence as well. 3, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. It says, what actually happens during the total eclipse? So you guys, a lot of times when you're answering a question, you just want to summarize it because that's pretty much the easiest thing to do is just tell exactly what happened in the story. So this question is actually asking you, well, this is an essay, but it's a story of what happened to her at the time. So what actually happens during the total eclipse? So here, I don't want you to explain to me what a total eclipse is scientifically. I want you to tell me what she describes in the essay. Just summarize it, okay? That one did not ask for text evidence. Did you think that the author's word choices and tone help the reader appreciate a total eclipse and cite examples from the essay? So the way that she wrote in this descriptive, almost magical, with lots of figurative language, the way she described it as being sort of otherworldly, she felt like she was literally transported into another place and time. So how does that tone and the word choices that she used help you to feel like you were there? Because I think that's what this author was trying to do, is make us feel like we were there experiencing it ourselves. So give me some examples. So I would just pick some of the most descriptive language from the text, a sentence or two, that made you really feel like you were there or that you could picture in your mind what she's talking about, and just discuss that. And number 5, how does contrast and contradiction, that's one of your signposts, remember, how does that serve as a better way of describing a true event than merely relating what was observed? So if the author had just said, okay, we were standing there and then suddenly you could kind of see the sun was starting to get covered, and it got covered a little bit more, and then by 5 o'clock it was covered halfway. What if she had just described it in ordinary details versus the way she did describe it, which was by contrasting it with other things that you might know of and making contradictions, saying it wasn't like this, it was like this. So how does her use of contrast and contradictions describe this lunar eclipse better than if she had just described it in everyday, ordinary terms? Okay? And that's your 5 questions, and I'm going to say goodbye for today. If you have any questions, email me and let me know, and I will talk to you tomorrow.